Hey everybody, Chrissy here. Welcome to the Save the Crafty YouTuber blog hop. If this is your first time visiting, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. So today I'm going to create that card I just showed you, and I am using a Kindred stamps set called It's Good to Be Bad. And I'm also going to use some Catherine Pooler inks. I'm actually going to show you how to watercolor using Catherine Pooler inks. So to start things off, I stamped the queen and that little poison apple onto some watercolor cardstock using Catherine Pooler's Midnight ink. Now this ink is super juicy, so if you're going to use it, keep in mind you only need to love tap it. Don't press too hard because you're going to get a clean, perfect impression that first time you stamp. So after that, I embossed it with clear embossing powder, and that was just to protect the ink. It normally doesn't smear when I'm watercoloring, but just to be safe, I like to protect it with clear embossing powder, just so I don't get basically done coloring in my image and then I screw it up. So I stamped Grape Crush and Midnight off to the side. Now I'm using a glass mat. If you don't have a glass mat, don't worry. You can stamp onto an acrylic block, anything shiny. So if you have like a laminated sheet or even the back of like an acrylic stamp set, the extra cover sheet that they put on there, that will work too. So I'm just stamping haphazardly there with my ink pads, and then I'm actually using a water brush to go ahead and watercolor. Now you don't have to have a water brush either. If you just have a paintbrush and some water, that will work too. And you can see as I'm coloring, I'm wiping off the color pretty frequently and actually the excess water onto a paper towel. So I think that this technique is actually very forgiving and very, very simple to do because with watercolor, even if you mess up, you can easily fix it. All you have to do is wait for it to dry, and then you can add a little bit of water and go back in and fix whatever you kind of messed up. So even if you color outside of the lines when you're watercoloring, once it's dry, you can go in and add some water and kind of erase it. So that's why I like watercoloring as much as I do, because I can make all kinds of mistakes and still fix them. Plus, I just love the look of watercoloring. So you can see that what I did is first I started out with the light purple. So basically I added a decent amount of water and did what's called a wash. So it's like a color wash. So that was just some light purple. And then as it dried, I came back and I added in a little bit of the dark where the shadows would be. I'm doing the exact same thing with all of the colors. So you can see that I stamped the rock and red and the green on there as well. So same technique. Going in really light, waiting for it to dry. Sometimes I use a heat gun to kind of speed it up because I don't always like waiting. And then adding in the darker shadows. And then also by doing that, when I wait for it to be dry, I get that really soft watercolor look that everyone's looking for, where you can see the layer upon layer of color. And I think that it actually looks like I painted it with watercolor paints and not ink or markers. So for the flesh tones, I'm using some Spectrum Aqua markers. Those are watercolor markers. So I did the exact same thing, except I scribbled with the marker. And then to finish everything off, I added some crystal clear sparkle. That's also a Spectrum Noir marker to the crown to make it a little shimmery. So I set that aside, fussy cut it out and set it aside once it was dry. I didn't show the fussy cutting on camera because no one wants to see that. At least I hope not. If you have a coordinating die or like a brother scan and cut, you can cut it out as well. So now I am coming in back with the Garden Party, which is the green that I used earlier. And then this grass green, and I am going to add some color into the stencil. So this is a Newton Snook stencil, and you can see I secured it down with purple tape. So number one rule, if you have never used a stencil before, make sure it is secure. What I tend to do, and you saw it in the video, is I flip the back on the back side and I secure it on the back from the back of the stencil. Then I secure it down to my surface, because there's nothing worse than being almost done and then boop, your stencil moves and you have to start all over again. So you definitely don't want to do that. Then I just peeled off the purple tape and you can see totally done. It went super fast. So now I'm actually going to start assembling the card, and then I'm going to add a few finishing touches. So I'm just using some Catherine Pooler Midnight Black for my card base, and it was just cut to 4 1/4 by 11, and I scored it at 5 1/2, and that makes it a top folding standard size A2 card. So I secured that front panel on, and now I'm just going to go using that same Midnight ink that I used earlier, and I'm going to stamp it onto that card. Like I said, love tap, and you'll see that it comes out perfectly fine. Now, I did use my Misty stamping tool. Really, that's just because sometimes I'm kind of klutzy. It's definitely not necessary. I recommend it when you're stamping onto like watercolor cardstock or maybe other cardstock that's a rougher surface because it's not smooth. You might not always get a clean impression, so that's when the Misty comes in handy. But for just stamping that sentiment, you don't have to have it. So I just went and I secured the queen down with a tape runner and then 3D foam for the little poison apple. And now I'm just going to go and add some sequins in. And see, I already put them on there. I dipped my sequins in glue with tweezers and then put them on the card that way. That seems to be the least messy for me, and it seems to work out pretty well. And now to really finish off the card, I'm just adding glossy accents to I guess that's the green poison on there. So thank you so much for stopping by today. Make sure to hop on to the next person. There's all kinds of prizes to win. And if you like what you saw, please subscribe to my channel and subscribe to everyone else's that you like. Thanks so much. Have a great day.